Welcome to the Spooky Tales podcast, presented by me, John.
And me, Louise. We have been fascinated by spooky goings-on since we can remember, and wanted to share with you the stories that pique our interest.
Today's story is of hauntings, possession, poltergeist, psychological manipulation, and an unexpected twist. It's the spooky tale of the Black Alchemist.
Welcome back to Spooky Tales Podcast. A big shout out to Martin, the moustached flight medic, who, as the name suggests, is a flight medic who has a moustache. However, it's a bit more than that. He's a paramedic on a helicopter, no less, and his moustache is epic. Thanks for the work you do, Martin. So, who or what is the Black Alchemist?
Well, our story of the Black Alchemist begins in the UK on the spring equinox of 1985. Let's set the scene. Do you remember 1985?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so who was the president of the USA?
Ronald Reagan?
It was indeed. And the UK Prime Minister?
Margaret Thatcher.
Yes. Now, do you remember what songs were in the charts at the time?
I was 12, 13, so hang on, 1985. Bonnie Tyler, Holding Out for a Hero. Oh, I love that song. Madonna, Into the Groove.
Yes, they're coming back, by the way.
Yeah, and that would take on. I can't remember
That's
how it goes.
Yes,
Take
really
on me.
Even he doesn't go that high anymore. Anyway, yes, I think you're right, but it was not in March. March was, in the UK, You Spin Me Right Round Like a Record by Dead or Alive. There was Easy Lover by Phil Collins. I Know Him So Well.
What, Phil Collins?
What?
You know Phil Collins?
No, that's the title of the song from the musical Chess, sung by Elaine Page. I know him so well.
And who else was in it? It wasn't just Elaine Page.
Okay, no, I don't know.
Wasn't he good? Oh, so good.
Yes.
I love that song.
Barbara Dickinson?
Yes, that was it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say Barbara Streisand, but it wasn't Barbara Streisand.
No.
Barbara Dickinson, I loved that.
You were so close with Madonna. It was Material Girl.
Living in a material world. You have hit the lodestone, the epic mountain of songs that I know.
Absolutely. Now, in the USA, it was Can't Fight This Feeling by REO Speedwagon.
Not so familiar with that.
No, nor me. But Phil Collins, who also did, he was there with One More Night.
One More Night. Literally any song apart from REO Speedwagon.
That's right. So, we're in the midst of all this pop culture, on the spring equinox, in the dark, in the night, in a churchyard.
Ooh.
A man dressed in a black robe, who was to become known as the Black Alchemist, completed a ritual using a wooden stake, some ribbon and a dagger.
Gosh.
He created 2 circles of protection against psychic interference before reciting an invocation by the power of Zosimos.
Zosimos?
That's right. To cut loose the head, sacrifice the soul, and let him return to raise the head.
What? None of that makes sense to me. None of that. It sounds dark and horrible. What was his name? Zosimos.
Zosimos. So he was an alchemist who lived in Greece in the 4th century AD, who followed Hermetic and Gnostic spiritualities. Okay. He was the first to provide a definition of alchemy as the study of the composition of waters, movement, growth, embodying and disembodying, drawing the spirits from bodies and bonding the spirits within bodies.
That sounds brilliant, but I still don't know what it means.
Well, it's the process of turning base metals to silver and gold by mirroring an inner process of purification and redemption.
What?
Zosimos saw the process of alchemy as more of a religious experience.
Gosh.
For example, his teachings were based on his visions. Visions,
okay.
Yes. Notably a dream that he had where he meets Ion, the priest of the inner sanctuaries, who fights and impales Zosimos with a sword, dismembering him into 4 parts, representing the elements.
This is a dream, yes?
Yes, that's correct, that Zosimos was having.
Right.
Ion then takes the pieces of Zosimos and burns them until there was a transformation from body to spirit. Ion then goes on to melt himself into the form of a homunculus, or a miniature, perfectly formed human being.
Oh, that is freaky. Do you know, I'm learning a lot already. I still don't know how this relates to the Black Alchemist, but okay, let's go.
His dream is reminiscent of the words of the Black Alchemist's invocation at the churchyard.
Okay. Is it?
Yes.
Oh, I see now. He was invoking something, some sort of transmutation, as once taught by Zosimos.
Yes.
Is that right? He was invoking something. He was bringing something.
Let's go with that.
Okay.
Yes. So the Black Alchemist completed the ritual by placing a slate shard with magical sigils on it.
What's a sigil?
Oh, a marking.
Right.
He placed it into the ground near the church. But what was he looking to do exactly? What was it all for? Dun dun dun! Ooh. Enter our two heroes of the story, Andy and Bernard. I think this is actually pronounced Bernard for our American listener.
Cool.
Now, Andy, or Andy Collins to give him his full name, who you might know from his appearances on Ancient Aliens.
Yes.
Recently, he's done a lot of research on the star formations of Cygnus and also on Globeki, and also on Göbekli Tepe.
Go on, say that again.
Göbekli Tepe. That's perfect.
And where is that?
Göbekli Tepe. Yeah.
Right, that's the stone formations in Turkey, yes? They're about 12,000 years old?
That's...
Recently found having been buried on purpose, not just covered by the ravages of time. That's the really weird things, isn't it?
Yes, and absolutely. And so Andy Collins had reason to believe that these and many other stone formations, temples and monuments around the world, Stonehenge and the like, are aligned to the Cygnus star cluster. Indeed, goes on to say that it is where DNA itself originates. I'll put a link to this book, The Cygnus Mystery, and his book on Göbekli Tepe, so that you can get the full story on that in the show notes.
Right, so he's always been interested in this kind of thing, then, Andy?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah? Okay, so what about Bernard?
So, Bernard was Andy's friend.
Is he Bernard?
Bernard's the English way of pronouncing it.
And he is English?
Yes.
Oh, Bernard.
But Bernard is I think that's the American way of saying it.
Bernard.
Bernard was Andy's friend. He was a manager of a local business in Essex and also a gifted psychic.
Ooh.
Now, Bernard and Andy worked together on their psychic questing activities.
What's psychic questing?
So it's going on a quest which is led by divining clues psychically through dreams, various forms of divination, visions, visits from Egyptian goddesses, that sort of thing.
Oh, I see. The usual run-of-the-mill week.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, Bernard was on a business trip near to Tewkesbury in the Cotswolds, Gloucestershire, in the west of England. Tewkesbury is a medieval market town and has a magnificent abbey. As it happened, Bernard had been wanting to visit Tewkesbury Abbey for some time to look at the tomb of Robert Fitzhamon, who lived from 1045 to 1107. Fitzhamon was a cousin of William the Conqueror and a relative of the Sinclair family.
Ooh, Sinclair? They built Roslin Chapel in Scotland, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you believe the book, The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, that's where the descendants of Jesus...
Yeah.
Did they live there, or there was information in the chapel?
Yes, that's kind of built into the chapel, or so they believe.
And the Sinclair family are descendants of...
Well, it depends if you believe that the Holy Grail is actually about a bloodline.
Then they are part of that bloodline.
Yes,
oh, right,
exactly. Okay. And so it's actually the book that inspired Dan Brown's... it may have inspired Dan Brown's page-turner, The Da Vinci Code.
Yes.
So, with all these connections, Fitzhamon was a pretty big deal.
So it's a Norman abbey, is it?
That's right.
That's quite unusual. I assume it didn't get smashed by Henry VIII when he dissolved the monasteries?
No, the town came together and bought the building, using it as their local church to avoid such a fate. As Bernard was entering the abbey, his psychic senses were heightened. As he wandered around the magnificent building, he started to hear voices, and one said, They come at the sun's height. Upon turning around, no one was there.
So he just heard that voice.
Just heard the voice.
So he was entering in and he heard a voice.
Yes. And then another voice said, "It is the sign of the Lord." Once more, and he turned round. There was no one there.
And that was a different voice, he said.
Different voice.
Okay.
Bernard came to Fitzhammond's tomb, but could not enter the small chantry into which it was situated. "Is this your first visit to the abbey?" came a voice.
Ooh.
Bernard was spooked and turned around, but this time the voice did actually belong to the abbey's verger.
Oh, right, okay.
So after some discussion, he was let in to the chancel to study the tomb.
What is a chancel? Is it just an area?
Yeah, it's a small sort of gated area.
Oh, right, okay. Is it because it's ancient, or it's because it's just one of those things, is it?
Why not?
Okay.
He was led into the chantry to study the tomb. Bernard decided to try psychometry on the tomb.
What's that?
So that's where you try to sort of tune in to the tomb itself and whatever may be around.
So you're looking for the energy, are you?
Yeah.
You're trying to pick up the energy?
That type of thing.
Okay.
All good psychic stuff.
Right, okay.
So,
Psychometry.
psychometry, yes, on the tomb to see what he could find out. And after some time, a voice inquired, "Who are you with knowledge of me that stands so quiet at my resting?" It was not the verger this time.
Wow.
The voice had come directly into Bernard's mind. He assumed it must be Robert Fitzhammond. Who else could it be?
Well, yes.
There then followed a conversation in which the deceased Fitzhammond demanded to know what had happened to the stave of Nizar, which was given to him on the field of battle from a dying friend in the Crusades. Fitzhammond's wish was that it be buried with him upon his death, but it never was.
Gosh.
It was stolen by, as Fitzhammond puts it, the bastard sons of the half-wit Robert of Montaigne.
This was all, he heard all of that in his head?
Yeah,
Gosh.
that's right.
Okay.
Lost forever, or was it? Fitzhammond was now silent, but Bernard started to get more voices and images in his mind. Wilmington, Paganus, church, woods. Upon his return to his home in Essex later that night, he sat down to try to make some sense of his extraordinary visit to Tewkesbury Abbey.
And who wants to go to Tewkesbury Abbey?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Absolutely. Is this going to be one of those things that we now have to write a list of all the places we want to go?
Yes.
Yes. Cool. So
We could go on our own little psychic quest.
Yes. Although I'm not sure if I want to meet a black alchemist.
True. No, but let's not. Yeah, just
the name is putting me off. I don't know.
then just go to a tea shop afterwards.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Anyway, so what this? I don't know what a stave is. A stave of Nazar?
Yeah, Nazir.
Nazir.
Stave of Nazir.
Well, and what was so important about it that he wanted it buried with him?
Well, Bernard, focusing his mind, was able to gain more impressions to piece together the story. It was a gold serpent rod used by a high priest. The rod was handed down from one priest to the next, and it was lost and then rediscovered where it was stolen, sold, stolen again, sold, given to Fitzhammond before being stolen once more by, as Fitzhammond put it, the bastard sons of the half-wit Robert of Montaigne.
Wow. So it is one of those kind of treasured artifacts in some way.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's used. So
it was used in ritual ceremonies by the Egyptians.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
And obviously it has been a prized thing to hold and to have. It was taken to a French priory in Wilmington in Sussex, South England, where it was used as an important ceremonial object.
So priory, so that's where monks, is it like not a monastery, but it's where a priory is where people worship? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think there's sort of religious people there.
Okay, so French priory.
Yes. Yeah. See, they settled in Sussex, which I suppose coming over from France in the sort of Norman invasion and so on.
Yes, because that's one of the southern counties, isn't it? Yeah.
Bernard also picked up that they had other sacred sites in the area of Wilmington.
Okay, now I want to go to Wilmington.
Yeah.
So that's the second on the list.
That's right.
Okay.
And now this one was a castle mound called Burlow Castle. It was thought to be the haunt of fairy folk. and used by pagans before Christians ruled the roost.
Yeah, the cheeky sausages.
Indeed. Also, a small church on a hill surrounded by a small wood. This, or another church built by Paganus upon the instruction of the monks in the village of Lullington.
Wow.
A stave was used at these sacred sites also.
So, Wilmington?
Yes, Wilmington.
Is that the same Wilmington where the long man of Wilmington is? The man carved on the chalk hillside?
Yes, that's the one.
The one with the big, aubergine. Isn't that what we call it? Isn't that kind of the emoji that we use?
I think that's the most... Well, you mean his sort of club?
I wasn't thinking of that type of car, but
right.
Okay, we can call it that.
I think you may be thinking of the other man carved into a hillside.
With a big aubergine.
With a big aubergine,
yes.
Which is the Cern Abbas giant.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so this giant
Isn't that near the kind of the horse?
It's near a horse.
I mean a chalk horse, not...
There are two... It's not that... Yeah, it's a bit of a distance between...
Right.
The horse near in Wiltshire.
Yes, we've seen
and then
that.
the other one in Oxfordshire. But we've seen both, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I have seen the Cern Abbas.
No, I've definitely not seen the Cern Abbas giant.
Okay, right, okay, yep.
So that's another place to go.
Yes, we're just going to have such a list.
So this giant man in Wilmington, carved into the hillside, has two staves, one in his left hand and the other in his right.
All right, so these staves representative of the stave of Nazir?
That's actually a good point. I hadn't thought of that. I don't think so, but it could well be. But actually, I think I might have misnamed them as staves because they're thought more to be spears or staffs. But
right,
stave, staff, rod, pretty much the same thing, really. It's just a matter of sort of length. Anyway, Bernard spoke to Andy Collins about what he had discovered, and Andy confirmed his psychic work through research.
So what Bernard actually had picked up through the ether, through energy, Andy was able to say, here, this is it. You're absolutely right. This is the proof of what you've...
Andy was great at sort of getting his nose into a book in the library,
right,
and discovered that yes, these things were all things. They weren't just completely nutty.
It's mad, isn't it, that some people are just so good at that kind of research and kind of like really good about following threads through books and stuff like that.
That's right.
Yeah, so it sounds like they've got a good team here.
Indeed. So the next step in the quest was to see if they could find the stave of Nizar, thinking it probably...
Nazir?
Nazir. Beg your pardon, yeah. Thinking it probably being located in the small priory, probably in a dark, damp, dank, spooky crypt.
Ooh, so what happened?
Well, there didn't appear to be anything at the priory, so they went to Burlow Castle.
Right.
There, Bernard saw a 4-foot guardian dwarf, big beard, leather tunic, the works.
Gosh.
He was looking at Bernard and Andy and laughing at them because they had entered the space from the wrong direction. The plateau had a turf maze on it which had to be entered from a certain direction during religious ceremonies. He told Bernard his name was Ogmore.
So could both Bernard and Andy see Ogmore?
No, just Bernard. Andy assumed it was some form of elemental thought form, placed there by a priest-magician to guard the sacred space. They decided to ask Ogmore about the stave of Nizar. However, this angered Ogmore. Using
what, the question or
yes.
talking to him?
Asking the question about the stave of Nizar.
Right.
Angered Ogmore. An angry dwarf. An elemental dwarf thought form. Anyway.
In a tunic.
In a tunic, leather tunic, yes. Using automatic writing, Bernard tuned into the dwarf more deeply.
Oh, he's brave, isn't he?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not sure I'd tune into an angry
dwarf, yeah. Thought form.
Dwarf in a leather
elemental.
tunic. Yeah.
So Bernard wrote that they had pierced his heart with the rod.
Gosh.
And I'm assuming that's the stave of Nizar, and reduced his strength, not heeding his warnings to depart. From this it was clear to Andy that Ogmore was the spirit of Burlow Castle Mound.
Right.
Andy thought he could help Ogmore by a strong visualization of golden light, to which the dwarf ran into the middle. His strength returned, and he gave the questers a clue for the next stage of the journey.
Whoa, you went through that quite quickly.
Yeah.
So...
Is there a bit to unpack there?
I feel a little bit.
Right.
A little bit. So it was clear to Andy that this elemental thought form of a dwarf in a leather tunic was the spirit of where they'd visited.
Yes.
Right. So it was a representation.
Mound, yeah.
Right. So Andy thought he could help him.
Yes, because his strength had been reduced.
I see. By the stave.
Yes.
So he wanted a strong visualization. So is that kind of like walk into the light?
Yeah.
That kind of thing?
Yes.
Right, okay.
So Andy sort of projected this strong visualization of golden light, and Ogmore walked into it.
Okay.
By walking into the golden light, his strength returned.
Oh, so it wasn't like walk into the light and depart. It was like walk into the light and...
Get your strength back.
Yeah. Okay, right, yep, okay, right, I'm with you now.
Excellent. So he decided then, so that Ogmore gave the questers a clue for the next stage of their journey, which was very helpful of him.
To find the stave,
yes.
That's the journey.
That's right. Telling them of the legend of Peredur, who is told to hunt a white stag in a small wood when he lost a game of chess. So Peredur loses a game of chess. So Perimore loses a game of chess and is told to hunt a white stag in a small wood.
Right, okay. Right. So that's because I got that he was playing a game of chess in a small wood.
No, sorry, perhaps it's the way.
I don't know. So he lost
that.
A game of chess,
yeah.
And his forfeit was, right, Peridor, off you go.
Hunt a white stag.
White stags, see, haven't I read that they're kind of like mystical creatures, white stags, and you should always be they're protected?
Ah, interesting.
I've always thought that was,
Oh, I didn't know that angle.
Yeah, so that actually sounds really quite...
But there is another angle I know, but I'll come to that.
Ooh.
Yes, so his forfeit, go and hunt a stag in a white stag in a small wood, because he lost that game of chess. But then Ogmore added ominously, remove head.
Right, what, remove the stag's head?
Yes.
And also, small wood, is that like the wood, is a wood nearby? Or at Lullington? Is it Lullington they are?
Yes, so
and
that's
near,
right.
Is that not near Wilbur?
That's right, yes. So he said those words, if you remember, the dwarf said, Bernard had picked up that he said church, wood.
Oh, right, so that's why Lullington. So there's a wood at Lullington. So it's a wood surrounding the church at Lullington.
Well, that's exactly what Andy and Bernard thought. So, having had this confirmed by the dwarf, they headed off to the church to remove a head. A stag's head, perhaps.
Okay.
The church was just down the road, and once at the church, Andy looked round for a statue or something with a stag's head.
Okay, that he was going to take off.
Yeah, I mean, they assumed it was going to be it's a representational thing.
Right, yeah.
They didn't appear to be anything that fitted the description. Bernard decided to wander through the tiny churchyard.
Yeah.
He had a concerned expression on his face, and as he turned to Andy, he said that he had the feeling that black magic had been going on at the church.
Really? Why?
It was just a feeling he had at this stage. Andy did not think it was connected with their quest to find the stave of Nizar.
What, he didn't think this was connected, the feeling?
That's right. There was just something different. Just something that maybe if it had happened, it was separate.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And so Andy continued his search around the wooded area surrounding the church and inside the tiny church as well. But nothing. No stag's head or anything that could be interpreted as a stag's head. Andy joined Bernard, who had been outside by some stone foundations, trying to tune into the location to see what he could find out. He was looking concerned and starting to get a headache. Andy left him alone to continue the tuning in. Andy decided to sit in silence in the church and ask for help. I guess that's kind of psychically as well, rather than go, help!
Yeah. So he was gonna tune in his own way.
Yeah, I guess so.
For help.
Yeah. Not long later, Bernard came and found Andy. He said, come on, let's go. I think I know what's going on. He's better take a look at this.
Gosh.
Bernard handed Andy a muddy length of polished stone, about 8 inches in length.
Ooh, could this be?
It was blue-grey in colour and shaped like a spearhead.
Okay, maybe not.
Along its sides were lines of magical symbols or sigils.
No, so that actually does sound like it could be what they're looking for,
yes.
Doesn't it, in some way?
And Bernard had found it by the stone foundations.
Ooh.
He had been guided there.
Yeah.
And his meditation had helped to pinpoint the location, so he did have help.
So he did have help, yeah.
However, Bernard's headache was much worse, and he was starting to feel ill. He wanted to leave as soon as possible.
So was that the head, do you think? That was the spear and the feeling of black magic connected to everything?
Yes, and yes.
Oh.
Bernard confirmed the connection, and Andy realised that the spear was indeed the head that Ogmore had requested they find and remove.
So that was like the head of the spear, head of a state, perhaps, or just a head of a weapon, or...
Yeah, it was the thing that basically, took Ogmore's strength.
Oh, right, okay.
They made their way back to Wilmington Priory, where they had started the day.
Yeah.
And after giving some time for Bernard to recover, Bernard diverged more information that he had picked up when he had held the spearhead. It was placed there, he said, by just one man working alone, and done as a ritual of some sort when the sun was low. I could see shadows being cast across the churchyard. The person who put it there, he was quite tall and wore a black cowled robe, its hood concealing his face.
Oh, a proper magical ritual then. Not necessarily dark, because you don't know that yet, do you?
But he'd obviously got some.
He got bad vibes.
Some feeling, bad vibes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what else did he see in his vision?
Well, Bernard said that he used the stone foundation as an altar and built a magic circle using a dagger and a yellow cord that he took from around his waist. This was when the spearhead was left. It was to seal and intensify the ritual's purpose.
What was the purpose? Why at this church?
Unclear at this point. Bernard and Andy were confused. They had started the day looking for an Egyptian ritual rod, the stave in his R, and ended up, at the request of an elemental dwarf, removing a black magic occult stone artifact from a churchyard.
Yes, it sounds like it had got a bit dark too.
Indeed. The next night, Bernard had a disturbing dream. There were hundreds of rooks in a frenzied state and unable to fly.
Yeah.
Also, there were 3 figures in black, cowled robes, stood in the centre of
Can I just go back? So, I think I was just wondering. Bernard was taking a risk if he's just seen a vision of a ritual and he's removed an item.
Yes.
He has no idea what. That's quite a thing, isn't it? Do you not think?
Absolutely. Do you know, that never even occurred to me. That might have been... Mind you, that Ogmore had said remove the head.
Yes, but they're taking...
You're right, it's a massive risk, isn't it? Because they've no idea what was infused with that.
No, and they have no idea what that ritual was that he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So Ogmore might have been saying remove it because it affecting him, but it may be there for some other reason. I mean, it seems to be dressed up as a black magic thing because it's got kind of hooded cowl and everything. But that is quite a risk to pick up a ritual item and take it with you.
Yeah.
That's quite a big thing, isn't it?
Well, perhaps it's not surprising he had such a disturbing dream then. Because it obviously really affected him.
Yeah, because I just think, if you deal with anything to do with energy, you know that collecting something like that, you're disturbing its purpose, aren't you, if it's been put in that way? And I think that was really risky. I'm surprised at Bernard, who was obviously made that way, would pick up something like that, don't you think?
It had never occurred to me, but yes, and it certainly would make sense why he had such a disturbing dream. And some of the things from the events that followed.
Can I also ask, is this a real story?
It is a real story.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because you'd never mentioned it if it was real. This is a real life.
This actually happened. Certainly according to Andrew Collins and Bernard.
Right.
So let's go back.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, really, really good point. So I'll just go back to the dream because he had this disturbing dream where there were hundreds of rooks in a frenzied state and unable to fly. There were also 3 figures in black, cowled robes, stood in the centre of a clearing around a black Calvary cross.
What's a Calvary cross?
I think that, it's just like a wooden cross like those on Calvary Hill in Jerusalem.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Just a way of saying like a crucifixion cross.
Right, okay.
So the evil feeling in the dream so unsettled Bernard that he woke himself up and went downstairs to make himself a drink and get out of the nasty feelings of the dream.
Yeah. I think we all know that feeling, don't you?
Oh.
You only want to get rid of a dream.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So he could not identify the place. He thought it might be somewhere near Lullington Church.
Yeah.
But there was a distinctive mound. And with all the rooks, he got the feeling it was called the Rookery.
Yeah, or something with rook in the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would ask Andy to see if there was such a place. So, obviously going back to what you're saying, he gets Andy to do all the research.
Yeah, good man. So did Andy know of such a place?
Yes. But he came across it whilst researching the meanings and the markings of the spearhead.
So Andy did?
Yes, Andy went off to find out what he could find out about the spearhead itself and the sigils.
And they took it, the spearhead? They took
Yeah,
it with them?
they took it with them.
Okay, gosh.
So initially, Andy could not find anything similar in his own research.
Yeah.
So, where might you find an expert of magical alphabets?
Cambridge!
Yes, absolutely spot on. So, he got in contact with 2 experts who might be able to help.
Yeah.
A man called Nigel Pennick, Cambridge-based author of books on ancient mysteries and pagan traditions,
Ooh.
and a lady called Prudence Jones.
Excellent name.
It is a good name, isn't it? Who specialised in Norse and Teutonic, or German, pagan mysteries.
Wow.
Actually, that sounds really good, sort of Germanic pagan mysteries, doesn't it? I must look those up. They sound fun. Anyway.
It sounds like they could be quite heavy.
Okay. Yeah, fair point.
Yeah.
Anyway, Nigel had a book, The Wilmington Giant.
Ooh.
And in it was a chapter called The Quest.
Ooh, how weird.
There they were on a quest.
Yeah, they were a quest, yeah.
In which it referenced an article entitled The Long Mound of Wilmington, which linked the area around Wilmington, including Lullington and Borough Castle.
Where they met the elemental dwarf.
Yes, that's right. Anyway, he linked the area to the legend of Peridor. So remember, that was another word that he picked up.
Oh, right. So that was the man who lost the game of chess and had to go hunt
That's right.
the white stag.
That's the one, the very same.
Yeah.
It was all starting to fit.
Yeah.
So, in the book...
The Wilmington Giant.
Yeah, and in there was a mention of a place called...
The Rookery.
Yes, that's right. So it was described exactly as Bernard's dream / nightmare.
And it was near Lullington.
Yes, just down the road near Borough Castle.
We're going to have to go.
Yes, absolutely.
So what about the magical markings? What did they mean? Could Nigel help?
Well, Nigel and Prudence couldn't help.
Oh.
They couldn't find reference to them either, except for similarities to a bardic alphabet, which was used by pseudo-druids in the 18th century.
Pseudo-druids?
Yes, probably more accurate to say neo-druids, part of the Celtic revival in the 18th and 19th centuries, based on beliefs and the ideas of ancient druids.
Well, see, you say a revival, but they may never have left, you see. This is the whole thing about druids.
Yes, I suppose that's the kind of mainstream thought.
That's a mainstream thought, yes. So whoever made the markings was using a more recent form from these magical beliefs then,
Yeah,
yes?
that could be. Mm-hmm. Andy and Bernard went back to their normal lives, and it was another month before they met up in an Essex pub. I think it was called the Griffin.
Okay.
So, although the experience at Lullington had made Bernard physically sick,
Gosh.
he was hopeful, Andy was, that he could persuade Bernard to psychometrise the stone spearhead and pick up more information on the mysterious occultist to whom it belonged and the dark ritual for which it had been used.
Seems a bit pushy, but I suppose how else were you going to find out what was going on? There's taking a risk again, isn't it?
Yes.
With a ritual item
connecting
to it.
But I guess that's part of psychic questing.
Yes, risky business.
Andy had tried to sort of mitigate the risk somewhat by dousing the spearhead in holy water to try to sort of negate its negativity.
Right, okay. The power that it had on Bernard before the nasty feelings.
Yes, so
right.
he was hoping, obviously, that, okay, put holy water on it so perhaps it won't affect him so much.
Right, okay.
Bernard reluctantly agreed.
Don't blame him.
He used automatic writing, or scribbles as he called it, to what came forth.
So what is automatic writing?
Well, that's what he was doing earlier. So you basically put your pen to the paper, try to sort of go into a meditative state, and see what comes forward. So it's like psychic writing, if you like.
Okay, yeah, okay. So Bernard was going to use that.
Yes, and that's what he was doing. He did earlier on as well.
Anything come from it? I mean, it must be quite difficult in a pub. Public house.
I wanted
in a hostelry.
That. Yes, because it's. I mean, even if it was quiet, you're sat there and probably with your eyes closed, looking like you're sort of going into some sort of trance. Yeah.
You've got people playing a jukebox.
Yeah,
or,
that's right, and the fruit machine.
And the fruit machine going.
Drinking, going, whoa, And
mind you, if it was a pub like in Midsummer Murders, they'd probably quite like that, wouldn't they?
That's true.
Probably pubs in Midsummer Murders that they do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but so even though, or that maybe, unless of course they were all very aware of Bernard and what he gets up to.
Oh yes, it could be. Oh, Bernard being himself.
Yeah, that's
Look
right.
at him sat in the corner with his pen out.
Yeah. Psychic Quest is in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he's automatic writing again. Yeah.
That's right. So, what he got this time was just a lot of words that didn't seem to make an awful lot of sense.
Okay, what sort of words?
So, sulphur, bringing to life, dying into the flame, skull, rework, relive. So, on their own, they make sense, but together it's kind of, well, what does that tell us?
Yeah, bring to life, dying into flame, it's all a bit...
Yeah, but he did get an impression of the year that the ceremony took place.
Which was?
1985.
Oh, that's the year that we're in.
Yes. Well,
right, obviously
that we're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so,
Material Girl.
Yes, that's right. So this really surprised them.
Yeah.
Because they'd assumed it was years ago.
Yeah.
And they were picking up from stuff from many years back.
Yeah. Because, black robes never go out of fashion,
well, that's
do
very
they?
true. Yeah. And they didn't... What they weren't sort of set up for was to realise that the occultist, he would still be around.
Oh, God.
Well, assuming it's a he.
Yeah, so it'd just been put there, almost.
Yeah, that's right. And he concluded that the occultist was a very capable black magician of strong mind and able to block out anyone who tried to attune to them.
To attune to the man?
Yes.
Right, to the person.
That's right. So the occultist was the black alchemist could block it out.
Right.
He was good at that.
Had shields up.
That's right.
Okay.
So Bernard did pick up some impressions of the man, though. He could see a man in a dark room surrounded by old wooden benches, skulls, odd things being burnt in glass bottles, and birds like rooks, crows, or ravens. This, coupled with the words that came through, suggested the man was an alchemist, a black alchemist, interested in not only the transmutation of base metals, but of his own soul into a higher state to achieve immortality. So that's going back to the Zosimoss stuff.
Right, okay. So he got a sense of that. Mm-hmm. That's what the ritual was that he was doing, or he was just interested in that.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So, probably more than interested.
He was
it wasn't just
pursuing,
a sort of curious
reading a book about it. It was an actual okay. Yeah.
So Bernard, not surprisingly, was getting wary at this stage. He also got the feeling that when he found out the spearhead was missing, he would plant another. He also got the feeling that they had not seen the last of him.
Gosh. Well,
so there we go. The end of part 1 of The Black Alchemist. Join us for part 2. Have our heroes, Andy and Bernard, unwittingly fallen into a trap set by the Black Alchemist. What were his intentions? Whatever they are, they were not for the good.
Gosh.
Now, before we go, I just want to mention another excellent podcast called Stories of Strangeness, created by Mike and Zoe. And what I'm going to do is just let them tell you all about it.
Hello, I'm Mike.
And I'm Zoe.
And we're the hosts of Stories of Strangeness, a paranormal podcast that talks about
aliens,
cryptids,
conspiracy theories,
hauntings.
What have we spoken about? What biscuit would you offer a banshee?
Are squirrels intelligent?
Would you really be distracted by the shadow of a sausage?
Some people are. Tune in every other Monday on your favourite podcast player.
We hope you enjoyed the first part of this spooky tale. We look forward to joining you again for part 2. If you have enjoyed these spooky tales, please do tell others, and please leave us a review so it can help other people who might enjoy our podcast find us. Thank you.
Please do tell us your spooky tales either in the YouTube comments or
via email, which is thespookytalespodcast@gmail.com. And come and follow us on Instagram at the Spooky Tales podcast.
Or why not visit us on our Facebook page at Spooky Tales. Thanks again. Until next time for part 2. Bye.
Bye.